Yellow, yellow! Ladies and gentlemen, I am back to man the front post yet again. Today, let's take a philosophical tour down the bowels of human nature and the beast known as human behavior to all. Phew. Human nature, in a general sense, is a rather foggy and oggy concept for the minds of both intellectuals and, of course, the feeble and primitive-minded commoners. Arguably, though, if objectively and rationally examined, it is entirely in the realm of possibility to arrive at one all-encompassing and single conclusion about the inherent innate condition of the human species. I would submit that upon observation, and a rather delicate and in-depth analyzation of such observations, that there is a simple truth lurking from within the mists and fogs of this hairy beast known to all as human nature. I would propose to all that this simple empirical, objective, and all-encompassing truth behind human nature is the reality of choice. Behind all of the mists of obfuscation and avoidance, this is the simple philosophical truth in which the primitive and even some of the intellectuals often overlook and even outright refuse to come to terms with. This simple truth is probably the largest elephant in the room by far, and yet, ironically, nowhere to be seen. Choice, when examined through an empirical philosophical lens, is the simple enactment of various actions, or the acknowledgement in the plurality of actions which are possible. Given the long and brutal history of the species, one could reasonably be drawn to the argument that man is inherently a being of evil beyond any reasonable doubt. However, this premise, though reasonably sound, faces a multitude of problems. If man is inherently evil, then it would be logically consistent and within reason to infer that man is also irredeemable, and thus no correction in behavioral error is possible, nor is it achievable in regards to any ethics. If no correction in behavioral error is possible, then no conversation or discussion of such errors is possible either, because it would never have any impact, effect, or influence on man's ways. The purpose of any conversation or discussion in a philosophical sense is to change and or influence the minds of its listeners in some way, shape, or form. In other words, once a conversation is initiated, there is an explicit acknowledgement of the capacity to change, influence, or alter the mind of the listener. If the mind of the listener can be altered, changed, or at the very least influenced in some way, then surely it is entirely within reason to infer that such an influence can manifest itself in the actions of the listener. The other problem facing the proposition that man is inherently evil is the fallacious conflation between the terms man and evil. The term man is a noun, whereas the term evil is an adverb. The term man doesn't describe any particular action, but it does describe a particular state of being. The term evil is an umbrella word used describing a particular set of actions, and thus cannot be a constant state of being in the way that being human is. In other words, being human is a predetermined conditional state and not something chosen, whereas evil is. Thus, conflating the two terms becomes fallacious. The second proposition, on the flip side of the same coin, would be that man is inherently good. This proposition on the surface seems sound, but even this claim would face a multitude of problems. If man is inherently good, then it would be entirely within the realm of logical consistency to infer that man is incapable of doing evil. If man is incapable of doing evil, then no guidelines for behavioral conduct are needed, because whatever man decides to pursue or enact will inevitably result in good, and thus no codes of conduct are necessary. If man's nature was inherently good, then it would be equally, and perhaps logically, consistent to infer that man would have no knowledge on the subject of evil. This effect would mean that good would have virtually no opposite within this theoretical universe, since evil would never have been possible nor known about. So to recap, if man is inherently evil, then no discussion on ethics or behavior is possible, since the enactment of evil is inevitable. If man is inherently good, then no discussion on ethics or behavior is necessary, since man could do no harm. As demonstrated earlier, these philosophical claims fail both the second and third tests in terms of what constitutes a principle. Those two tests being logical consistency and empirical evidence. This, in effect, leaves us with the only rational premise, which is that man is inherently a being of choice. When examined and objectively analyzed, we can reasonably conclude that man possesses an equal capacity for both good and evil. Given this information, we can reasonably infer that man is neither destined for good, nor is he destined for evil, but only for the reality of choice. This, ladies and gentlemen, is the mysterious elephant in the room. Thank you.